Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sound Waves. I'm Rob Petrosh, the founder of Sound Cove Labs here in Greenwich, Connecticut. It's great to have you today. The goal of, we've talked about on past podcasts, the goal of Sound Cove Labs is to make AI easy for business. And we love to talk to great founders about their story. And we've got a great one for you today. We have Austin Clemens joining us from Loyal Home Concierge. Hey, Austin, how are you?
I'm doing well, Rob. Great to be on. Thank you.
Great to have you. So first off, tell everyone where you are in the world.
I live in my namesake city, Austin, Texas.
Amazing. And your company operates obviously there, but how wide do you go in the
We're
great
just in
state
the
of
Austin
Texas?
market now, and maybe there's opportunities to expand elsewhere, maybe other large Texas cities, but for now, really focused on Austin.
Okay, cool. What inspired you to build Loyal Home Concierge? What was there a moment? What got you going?
Yeah, a couple different factors. And being in the real estate world, I grew up in the real estate world. And so I think I picked up a lot through osmosis from a young child. And I saw my dad as a real estate attorney doing transactions, saw friends' dads who were home builders. When I was old enough, I'd work on job sites, usually doing the dirty jobs in construction, sanding, bondo. So I grew up around it and then had a career in tech, mostly doing software sales, and then reached a point several years ago where I thought, man, I would love to be doing something for work that really aligns with my values more closely. And how do I want to show up in the world? How do I want to care for people? So saw an opportunity within home services to really elevate the customer experience. So how homeowners are being cared for in their home through the serving of functional needs. And then Loyal was born. So we're a home management and home maintenance company, really trying to provide a Ritz-Carlton type experience in how we serve homeowners here in Austin.
And did you find, when you were kind of coming up with this concept, were you thinking about, you say the Ritz-Carlton, but there's so many different types of homeowners all over the state. Why did you go on the luxury route or take the luxury route?
Yeah, we didn't start taking the luxury route. I really wanted to be a mass market solution that was accessible to everybody. And so we started off with a preventative maintenance offering based on subscriptions. And it was a fairly low monthly cost. What we saw is that homeowners under a certain home value in Austin weren't really paying for this type of preemptive preventative solution. And then we saw with our higher end clientele or more expensive homes, they loved working with us and they would just keep asking us to do more things. And so we'd start being a young company and being opportunistic. We were just saying yes. And so I think what we learned is, wow, we're a really good fit and we grow and expand quite organically with a higher end household. And, I would say an above midpoint price point here in Austin, we can really provide the experience that we'd like to a higher end clientele that is willing to pay a bit more because they're concerned with quality, they're concerned with the experience, they're looking past just price.
Yeah, and I know the Austin market has changed over the years, especially with a lot of big tech coming in, which probably increase your customer base, which is great for you. So let's
Totally.
talk a little bit about I am a customer of yours. Tell me about some of the services I can get.
Yeah, so we typically anchor on quarterly preventative maintenance. That's the foundation that we build upon. And that's really something that should be done on every home. So that's flushing your water heater, which is really important here in Austin with high degree of sediment in the water, servicing the HVAC system quarterly, changing filters, making sure the condensate line is clear, servicing all the appliances in the home. So really working to extend the useful life of systems like HVAC and appliances like washer, dryer, dishwasher, and then checking the entire home inside and out. So we build on top of that, and then we act as the conduit for any home project. That might be a repair or an upgrade. We first evaluate, is this something that our in-house team as generalists can take on? If it's something like swapping out a light fixture, my team would do it. If it's a specialty need, we would bring in a very high quality vendor partner, and then we project manage them. And then also our clients really like us to be accessible to them. And so if they want to pay for it as part of their membership with us, we'll offer 24/7 availability. And so, God forbid, middle of the night, a water line breaks and they got water pouring through their ceiling, they can call us and we'll be right there within the hour, usually sooner. And then we notice that our clientele, they like having access to personal administrative support around the home. And so again, that might be my team delivering, or that might be a partner. That could look like stocking the fridge with healthy groceries, finding a chef that can cook and pre-prepare meals at the beginning of the week and then leave them in the fridge for the family, or home organization. And so what we've gotten really good at is sourcing really good vendors here in Austin. And it's amazing that there's a very high quality of home service providers here, which is excellent. And then we work with them to cater to the needs of the client.
Yeah, well, I think when you say the name of the company, which is Loyal Home Concierge, the what you were talking about with inside the home and the groceries, I guess that's where it comes to life, right? Which really separates you from others.
Absolutely. And we want to convey to clients, and the name is helpful. We want to convey that we're trustworthy, and we want to convey really no request is off limits. And so my team is working to be really resourceful problem solvers so that if a need is spoken, we can say, yes, we'd love to put something together for you. Or sometimes we can anticipate unspoken needs. Maybe we'll pick up some stressors or frustrations, and then we're able to say, hey, here's a solution we put together for you. Is this something that would be beneficial?
And when you were talking about all the services you provide, I'm thinking about my own home and where I live in Connecticut. And, obviously that's about 5 or 6 phone calls you mentioned that I probably make every fall or spring. How do you message that simply to the market so they understand what you do?
Message our identity as a company, you're saying?
Correct. Yeah. So they understand that it's one call can save you a lot of time, which most of your homeowners are probably busy professionals.
Absolutely. Yeah, a mentor of mine said, "Hey, Austin, why don't you use this tagline, 'One call solves it all'?" We haven't used it yet, but we've been doing some website revamps recently, so maybe that'll come in. Honestly, Rob, that's really hard, and I have not cracked the code on marketing. All of our business, well, about 90% of our business has come just through referrals. And so we build a reputation with either homeowners directly, and they say, hey, you got to talk to so-and-so down the street. Let me give them your number. Or intermediaries, realtors being the most common. We do a lot of business through realtors, and we help them with their projects. And so in a smallish city like Austin, our reputation can travel fast through word of mouth. But yeah, it's hard conveying kind of a Swiss Army knife type value prop. It's hard to sum that up. So really it's, we do really well for our client. We build a reputation. They understand our value. They understand that we're resourceful, and then they pass our name on. I probably have some room to grow in how we articulate that, off of a website.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, it sounds, and that's great to hear about how word of mouth is such a powerful, method of marketing, probably one of the most powerful, but it does take time and it takes a reputation. And it's great to see you guys are building in the right direction. On that, tell me about what you're most proud of. How long have you been around again? I'm sorry. I think you mentioned up top, but
2.5 years.
2.5. During that time, when you think back to either specific clients or one job, what's something you're most proud of? A moment where you said, I'm so glad I started this. This is what this company is about.
Yeah. One story comes to mind particularly, and I'll see if there's others as well. But there's a realtor that we've done a lot of business through, and he sold a home to a couple that moved from Southern California. And they had both retired from their jobs in Southern California. They moved with their older child that lives with them that has some medical needs. And they came to Austin just because they liked what they heard about it, but they literally knew nobody except for their realtor who'd become a friend. And so we did the finish out work on their new build home. And so kind of punch list stuff that the builder didn't address. We also took some requests of theirs to really make the home their own, customize it a little bit, add some features and functionality. And so that was our initial project with them. And through that several weeks of working, we got to know them a little bit. I teach my team to be inquisitive, to kind of find that right line of not asking too many questions, but getting to know our clients and building a relationship. And through that, we learned that they didn't have really any people in Austin. We also learned some interests of theirs, that they wanted to learn Texas two-stepping. They also wanted to learn pickleball. And so we were able to plug them into some communities and give them some early friendships. And so what I loved about that is we could help them in a number of ways beyond just the functionality of the home. We could really help them set up a thriving life here. And then I felt really honored that at a time when that older child who had some medical needs was being hospitalized in an emergency, like they reached out to us to say, hey, will you be thinking of us? We're really scared right now. We're taking our son to the hospital. And that was such an honor to be included with such a private thing and, be able to keep him in our prayers. And so, yeah, it felt like a really special relationship and a way to serve, beyond just the functional needs of the home.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. I mean, that truly is above and beyond. And what's really impressed me just learning more about your company here is, when you think of home services businesses, they're typically pretty straightforward. You guys really do take it to the next level on what you offer. And I think again, your demographic loves that, and that's how you keep them. So I'm really, really impressed by that. And a lot of the founders who tune into this show, they tune into to learn from other founders, and they quite often want to dig into some of the tougher parts of the business. And we know running a home services business and a concierge is really hard. So talk to me about where do you some of your toughest challenges you guys face. And I know it's been 2.5 years. I don't know if they what still exists, but yeah, talk us through some of the tough parts of your day or your week.
Yeah, I think it's so. In my tech career, I watched young software companies get off the ground, and I observed something that I'm now experiencing myself is that as you're growing from founding, so starting going 0 to 1 and then onward, you have these inflection points where like all your systems have to change. So when I went from myself and, one employee to hiring my next employee, not a real big jump in team size, but our systems had to change because the rapport I had just, talking to one other person and doing things together, now I was more removed from day-to-day operations and had to have systems that would govern who owns what, how do things work, what are our standard operating procedures. And I'm at another inflection point where we've got some people needs because we're outgrowing just our personal bandwidth. We need to grow the team, and my systems are going to change again. And so that's been, definitely a stretching experience. Um, I think this next challenge kind of relates to the way we want to show up in the market. And so we want to appear very different than other home services businesses. And one way we do that is how we communicate and how we handle stressful situations or conflicts. And so unfortunately, it's very common in the home services industry to point fingers or play this kind of right-wrong game. And I understand why that happens. Clients and homeowners want to protect themselves. Vendors want to protect themselves and be defensive about what they did and didn't do. And it can sometimes lead to a tenuous interaction. And we don't want to do that. And so we work really hard in a conflict situation, which inevitably comes up, to first seek to understand what's going on. And that could be in a conversation with a homeowner or with a vendor that we've brought in. And we're seeking to learn, and we're asking only questions and then listening. And then we can recount back what our understanding is. And then that allows us to have a two-way conversation to figure out, okay, what's the best path forward. And most of the time, we're not, even if someone else was wrong, whether it's a client that maybe made a mistake or a vendor, rarely are we calling that out. We're just seeking resolution. So I think that's a constant challenge, and new forms of those conflicts rear their heads, and we always work to sharpen our communication and negotiation and conflict resolution skills. But it's always really a need to stay sharpened and something that we have to continually invest in.
Well, I love your professional and very mature approach to that situation, which happens all the time when you're dealing with homes. I think everyone, all of our listeners who are in this business, completely understand that. Want to turn a little bit. You mentioned marketing up front and an area word of mouth again. It means you're doing a great job, and that's powerful. But obviously, you want to grow. So, what are you looking to do marketing wise, as you know, for the over the next year, 2026, as you sit down and think about a marketing plan? What's on your, what's on the docket?
Yeah, something I've been doing recently is really thoughtful, direct outreach to valuable intermediaries. So if there's realtors that I've not yet worked with, saying, hey, can I take you out to coffee? Let you know the vision and how we're different and really what our DNA is as a company, and be in your back pocket if a need arises down the road. And there's other intermediaries in our space like interior designers or architects. I've been starting to go to more events recently, and ideally I want to go to an event where other professionals are there but also homeowners, and those are pretty few and far between. We're also exploring new ways of giving back to our community. And so we've sponsored a couple charity galas over the summer. Big Brothers, Big Sisters was one of them. And so saying, hey, here's some things that we care about that our heart is for, and mentoring is one of those for me. And so, we want to put our money where our mouth is and meet others that share that passion. So those provide really valuable visibility opportunities as well as just relationship building. There's another organization called Cornerstone Restoration that's local to Austin that provides kind of what we do, but for people that can't pay. And so I'm able with my team to volunteer a couple days a week a couple days a month. A couple days a week would be tough,
That's
but
great. Very
hopefully we can do that
generous.
at some point. And we're able to help like an old lady get her AC running again, or patch some holes in a wall, kind of things that are inhibiting healthy living in the home that they just can't afford to pay for. And we're able to do that through excellent purchasing of materials, excellent installation. The team of volunteers there is amazing. And so that's a really fun way for us to build community and get visibility.
And what about social media? What have you done with Meta, Google, TikTok to get the word out?
Yeah, not a lot, Rob. And that's where, me as a background sales guy, like I don't have a lot of marketing experience. We ran a little bit of ads on Facebook and Instagram. That was really for the intention of kind of brand visibility rather than like driving certain calls to action. That didn't move the needle a ton for us. I think it did provide another touch point and maybe increase some relevance such that when people saw us a second time, they said, oh, I've seen Loyal around. Like, yeah, I'll give him a call. But I can't point to a lot of fruit from that. So I think, honestly, that's a big growth area for us. And I think as we get a lot bigger, particularly marketing channels like that, it should be just part of business as usual. But that's an area where I can learn more of what works and how do we reach our clientele who's often reticent to click on an ad and more likely to go with a referral from a trusted source, like maybe their wealth manager or realtor.
Right, right. Yeah, and I think also part of you can use social media to also set a vision for the brand,
Mm.
for how people perceive you in the market without a hard sell. Because you're right, it's a discerning marketplace. Although you'd be surprised, the affluent community they're on Instagram just like everybody else, but it's very interesting. And we've seen it done across. But yeah, I think that's an area of growth for you. We talk to so many different founders, some who target the higher end, some who target the lower end, but pretty much all are using social media in one way or another to tell their story, to make sure how they're perceived in the market. If you had a magic wand and you can put this to any part of the business, from sales, marketing, operations, hiring, if you could make one part automatic tomorrow to make your life easier, what would it be?
It would be the perfect hire for I'll call it director of operations that I have full faith in to completely run the show. And I don't even know what's happening. My real excitement and kind of my gifting is the strategy, the leadership, pouring into my employees, investing in them. And then I love building relationships with the community and being the on ramp for new customers. But I would love to just say, here's John and, or Sarah, and you're in good hands with them, and let that individual and their team run with it. And just because we're, younger in our business, we're not quite there, but I'm very excited for the day when I can make that hire. And I would love for that person to just, inspire full confidence in me.
Yeah, I completely understand that. And that is a little bit of a unicorn hire, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But would be a game changer for you if you could find that person. Yeah, I hear that. What's one lesson, again, one thing that our audience they love to take away, bites of information that can help them early on. What's one lesson you wish you'd known that you would have changed from day one if you could look back?
Man, I'll say two. One of them was a not too painful of a lesson, but more kind of a positioning one is, and this is marketing related. And, I learned this in my software sales career, but I had to relearn it with Loyal, is that we are selling benefits versus, features and functionality and job descriptions. Like, we need to do a good job of conveying the benefit that happens when you outsource the care for your home. You have less unforeseen issues. You save money in the long term. You don't have to worry about stuff. You don't have to wait all day for a vendor to show up or not show up. So when we can convey the lifestyle and the household benefits, that's much better than saying, "Hey, we do A, B, C, and here's what that looks like." That was one lesson, and then the other one was, and this was particularly early on when we were doing a lot of different types of projects, is we were just saying yes, and we said yes to some things that we should not have said yes to. We said yes to jobs that were outside of our expertise, and it was challenging. And in some cases, we made mistakes and we had to eat the cost of fixing those mistakes. A couple times we had to hire professionals to come in and fix our boo-boos. And so that was, painful checks to write and quite humbling, but helped me, now to say, hey, we're not the best fit for that. You should find this profile of vendor. So being willing to say no is, that was a hard lesson, but a good one to learn.
Absolutely. And I think that lesson really transfers across many industries, whether you run an ad agency, a home service business, but it's very hard in those early days when you see revenue. You're like, I cannot say no to revenue, but
Yeah.
but you do, I've heard the story you've just told many times. I've witnessed it. And there's so much power and saving time, money, and headaches and saying no once in a while. So for the audience, I back up Austin 100% on that one, and I have a few of my own stories there too. I think just quickly in our last couple of minutes here, talk about the future of home management. And again, I think your company, you are a bit of a pioneer the way you are doing things, but I do think there is a demand for this service, especially in higher end markets in the United States. As the years go on, what do you think the future of home management looks like compared to today, like in 2, 3 years?
Yeah, I would say two things. I think one, and we're seeing this a lot in Austin, which is a hot real estate market, and you see this in other sophisticated real estate markets across the US, is this category of preventative maintenance, or this offering of preventative maintenance, is really becoming more common. I think that'll reach, a lot more markets in the next 5 years and become a well-known thing and something that everyone is doing, and shifting from a reactive approach of, oh man, my furnace failed, I got to replace it. And I'm replacing it, 5 years before I thought I would, but I just got to bite the bullet and do it. I think people, with the prevalence of this preventative maintenance offering, will be shifting from reactive to a lot more proactive. So that's really great for peace of mind and, just savings over time. The other thing I'll see is, particularly at the high end in the luxury market, where complexity of homes is increasing, and you might have a home automation system that governs everything electronic and system in the home, and that might be an amalgamation of 5 different manufacturers. And so that adds a lot of complexity where things will go wrong more often. An electronic issue might be connected to a mechanical issue. And so having a single point company like us, I think you're going to see a lot more companies like us around the nation, that they know the vendors in a geography, they've got great relationships, they know how to diagnose what's going on, and they can act as your advocate and your kind of in-home GC to really run with it, so that homeowners aren't saying, oh, who do I even call for this? And after that, what's the order of operations of different vendors that might need to come in sequence? So I think you're going to see a lot more companies like us that are handling everything.
I agree. And, I think you also back up the term time is money. It really is. And you give it back to a very busy, affluent consumer. And that means so much to them. So I think you are all going to have a lot of success. And we really appreciate you coming on. Just tell our Texas friends how they can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. So loyalhomeconcierge.com is our website. Our social handle is @loyalhomeconcierge. Those are great channels. And we got our email and phone number on the website, but those are good starting points.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much for coming on today. And we look forward to your growth and having you back on and tell us everything you guys did in 2026.
Thank you, Rob. Really appreciate it.
Okay. Thanks, Austin. Have a good one.
You too.
And thanks everyone for joining today. We'll see you on the next version of Sound Waves.